Hi, here we are, January 2nd, the second meeting of ChakraTalk Live. Last night was just kind of a quickie to see if everything worked. Today you're stuck with me for 90 minutes. So let's get right to what we're going to do here. I'm Piper. I run a group called ChakraTalk. We run a page for our group called Marinsky's Magic, which is our local stuff here in Salem, Oregon. I'm based out of Salem, Oregon. And I'm very new to this live thing, so I see somebody's just joined me here who's an expert. Thank you so much for being here in case I have any questions, Marita. I was hoping you'd be here. Okay, so the purpose of this group, I promised you 365 days of talking chakras, and that's what we're going to do. I'll give you a little bit of background history. I'm Piper, and I'm the half owner of Marinsky's Magic. The other half is my partner, Joe. He's currently off meditating in a dark room. Part of what we do here, our tagline is connecting you to the cosmos. And we like to do that in whatever way we can. Mostly I work with people and their chakras because it came to me about 4 or 5 years ago as spontaneous, abrupt download that the whole world is created by these chakras. And I've spent about the last 3 or 4 years going into this really deeply and getting way down to part of its physics, part of its spirituality. But what I find is everything that I go looking for, if I look hard enough, I can describe it, answer it, describe it even to other people. Other people can experience it by understanding chakra function. I'll also share with you that about 4 or 5 years ago when I started this journey, I was about this close to being dead. Literally, the veil was in front of me as thin as a lace curtain, and I looked on the other side and said, no, not quite yet. And so during that time, by understanding all this chakra stuff and figuring out how it works in the body and how it works in the world, I have essentially cured myself of cancer and several other chronic kind of things, and not only cured of them, but figured out what caused them and how to prevent that and how to tell other people to prevent that. So in my other life, before I got here about 5 years ago, I was a registered nurse for 30 years. So I have a real broad view of all the things that people can suffer from, and I have the huge American medical view of how to take care of a lot of that stuff. And I can tell you a lot of it don't work. I was a psychiatric nurse on top of being a registered nurse. And so I've dealt with a lot of people dealing with things like anxiety, psychosis, insomnia, multiple personalities. So just a variety of everything. I worked with children all the way up to elderly adults. And these kind of afflictions affect everyone. As soon as a child can talk, they can be afflicted up until you're in your 90s and you're still suffering with this shit. So it has become kind of my thing to figure out why this is happening to people, because I was able to figure it out and get away from it for me. So there has to be ways this works for everybody. So what I've done is, I don't know how this works with the camera. I think these may be backwards to you. They look okay. Anyway, I've written these couple of books. Actually, I've written about 25 or 30 books now. It's kind of just been this mission. I have to get this information out. But the bottom line of that mission is every single bit of this has come about by understanding chakras. I'm here alive and well today because I understand chakras and how to align them and how to recognize when they're not aligned and all the myriad problems that can cause for a physical human body. Hi guys, I'm really new to this, so if I'm not responding to you, I'm still trying to figure out my technology here. I'm glad to see you people joining me though. There really is Jody, Marita, thank you so much for being here. Brand new to this, so like I said, you're going to get this all year. Maybe by the end of the year, we'll have it figured out. So I want to start right in today with some very, very basic information. First of all, I do not get any of my information from what you'd call research, what I refer to as Google God. No disrespect intended at all, but what I want you to know is I have not compiled all this information from searching Google. This information has come to me in the form of probably the best word to be psychic downloads. Um, I go to sleep at night and I don't know something, and when I wake up in the morning, I do know something. Um, and this story goes all the way back to the first book I wrote called Grandma to Guru, Now What? On October 26, 2014, I just got so damn tired of the voices in my head, and I turned around and just faced them head on and said, "What the fuck do you want?" And the screaming died down for a minute or two, and someone said, "We're here to help." I was like, "Okay, I'll take that under advisement." Um, well, it turns out I did have an awful lot of voices in my head that were not here to help, but then there was this background crew that was kind of quiet and sat and wait their turn, and they turned out to be all my guides and all the wonderful, powerful people that I work with now today and are friends of mine, talk all day, every day. Okay, all of this coming about by understanding what chakras are working, what chakras aren't working. Um, so back to the very beginning, I do mix a lot of physics in with this, but I try to be very gentle with the physics because I'm not a physics master. I'm a nurse. We study biology. It's a little different. And I'm a retired nurse now, so I don't even practice anymore. This is what I do now. Try to help folks with this, run my business, Marinsky's Magic, and try to give out as much of this information as I can from the Ascended Master level, which I reach through chakras, which is where I kind of live and work now. Okay, so the very beginning, all this stuff around us that we have here, life, that you'd call it, the world, the universe, whatever you choose, God, I'll even allow that God word in here. This is all energy. This is all energy in various forms. It can do two things and only two things. It can move and it can change its form. That's it. If you go back in physics, and like I said, I'll be gentle with the physics, and you can look for it elsewhere if you're really interested. If you go back to the Big Bang, what happened is, boom, there was a noise that started this energy moving, and the energy has never stopped moving. And we don't have any reason to believe it would stop moving. One of the rules in physics is that a thing in motion tends to stay in motion until something provides an opposing force, so something interferes with it. Well, we're all there is. This is all the energy there is. There is nothing to interfere with it. So it just continually expands into the world, creating all these things that we know. Now, that's the sum total source of all energy. When you take a little piece of that energy, and for the reason we don't know yet, it goes bloop, and it makes this spontaneous little spiral. I call it a spontaneous coalescence, spinning itself into a spiral for no apparent reason. That's called a chakra. The Sanskrit named this spinning wheels of light, and that's very accurate. But if you change the word light to energy, it makes more sense to me. So you've got this chakra, you've got this total source of energy, and you've got this little piece of energy that starts spinning. Well, this little spinning energy creates a filtered energy. We see that as a human life, okay? While we're here doing this, we are filtered energy that is part of the whole energy. We're never separate from the whole energy, but right now we're running through a filter. That filter is a set of chakras. The 7 or 8 chakras that make up a human being are well known, and I call my first book The Famous 7. Everybody knows your root chakra up to your crown chakra and the pretty rainbow that it makes, but there's so much more than that. Beyond that, there's this old knowledge chakra that's just right here. All the knowledge that has ever existed in the world is about 6 inches above your head, and I can show you how to get there and go in there and retrieve whatever part of that you want to use. The idea here is not for me to say, this is what you do, this is how you do it, this is what's important. The idea for me to say is, did you know you can do this? Now you take it and go do what's important to you. And if I can help you in some way, that's fantastic. I want to say right out loud here, in all of this, this has only been going on now 4 or 5 years, and I credit only one human teacher, human being alive right now, as helping me on this path. And her name's Marion Simon, and I just love her to death, and she taught me how to go on a shamanic journey. And on my first shamanic journey, I picked up the stinkiest old reindeer you have ever heard, ever smelled. The smell came to me before I knew what it was. I was like, if this is journeying, I don't know. But sure enough, it turned out to be an Arctic reindeer. And he has been with me ever since. And he was the very beginning of me understanding there's more going on here than what I see here in my little workroom. Okay? This reindeer was so real to me, I could smell him. And yet I knew he was from 10,000 years ago. So that's kind of how this all started, how I got so drawn into this and I got so interested. Well, at the same time this is going on, I've got this physical body that I've just damn near killed because of not understanding how to take care of it. So as I'm waking up here and my spiritual life is exploding, I'm dying of cancer in here and I got all kinds of things going on and my life is just in upheaval. I just processed and went through a divorce, getting out of a serious vibratory mismatch. He got that all lined out. So, but let me tell you, the difference in 4 years is incredible. I have completely reestablished my entire world. I'm healthy. I'm happy. I go to the gym regularly. I eat wonderful, healthy foods, not because I made some big habit to do that, but because now I listen to my body and it tells me what to eat. It tells me if I'm not eating the right things. It tells me if I'm eating too much. I don't eat near as much as I used to, and I find I don't need to. I don't use any kind of chemical drugs. I do take plant medicines, quite a few of them. In fact, I'm right now in the middle of a dandelion willow bark detox, yellow bark or something that's for my liver. But you see, I get all this advice from spirit. I don't have anybody here directing me. I have a lot over there directing me, or standing there, or standing right over there. A big team. And man, they just never let me wrong. Well, the reason I have them is because I've learned absolute magnificent control of these upper chakras to allow that information to come in, but only to allow it in so that it serves me, not so that it comes in and overwhelms me. By any and all definitions here in the United States, I meet every diagnostic criteria for full-blown delusions of grandeur, schizophrenia. Okay? Every single one. And I live a happy, wonderful life, and I'm just as pleased as punch every day. Well, it's not crazy if the voices are real, they're talking back to you, and they're affecting your life in positive ways. Crazy to me would be to ignore that. Yeah, you know, I mean, it's common sense. If this works, do it. If it works some more, do it some more. Well, that's how it's been with my life, and for 4 years, it's just been exploding and just blowing up into this miracle thing. Okay, so my big purpose besides putting these books out, in the back of the second book, I promised to be available to whoever had questions from the books. I started running this as a workshop in my house. I've done the workshop a couple of times, anywhere from 5 to 10 people. And it was very effective. And those 5 to 10 people engaged with their chakras. They understood that they had them. They knew what they were doing. They felt it. They felt the energy. They felt something move. A couple of them even got up and got angel conversation. All of that is controlled by knowing where you're at within this column and knowing how to move in it willfully. Not letting yourself get yanked out of body and put back in and thrown into all this chaos, but doing it willfully, knowing where you want to go and going there. So deciding and doing it with a couple people here and a couple people there seems okay, and it was very effective for them, but I was like, the universe doesn't really let me kind of sit on things. That's why I've had 20 or 25 books published, and a lot of them are no bigger than little essays, but they didn't give me the choice. They said, you need to do this, so it's what I do. So pretty much right now, if you ask me, what are you? I would say I'm a Buddhist monk. And I live a sponsored life, meaning that I have someone who takes care of me so that I can do the work I'm intended to do. And I just don't know how I could get any better than that. I don't work a public job anymore, but I do a lot of work with the public like this, all around the world, actually, because of the internet. So, God, what a blessing that is. Okay, I'm going to jump right in. And I'm going to just start this just like we would run a chakra class. I'm looking at something here. I'm trying to learn how to read this, guys. I see that lots of people are here. Sandy, Nelson, Toya, hello. Hello. This is my first really time doing this, guys, so bear with me. Connie. Somebody says, may I have a message, please, Toya? I'm not really doing readings. It's not that kind of show, but stick with me for a little bit. You might find out some information. Okay. Anyhow, all of you guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm still figuring out the Facebook Live. I'm going to keep going. So once we have this spinning energy that turned into this chakra thing, and we don't know why that happens, but it happens, then it creates this life that we have. Well, so let's talk about those famous 7. Let's start where you all are, because most of you have heard of them. You know about the root chakra, red. Okay, we'll go colors. We'll go just like you would know it. The root chakra is red. Important for grounding you to Mother Earth and all those things, okay? And that it also runs a lot of your DNA, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Your orange and yellow chakras. Most of the places present these separately, as the orange having a very specific job and the yellow having a very specific job. In my world of downloading, this came to me as orange and yellow must always work together. They are what is actually creating this human body. You can't fix one without fixing the other, and I found that out when I went about repairing my physical health. Any energy poured into the one would either pull down from the other or it would leak out the other, so they had to be managed together. When I talk about, well, you really can't see it, but when I place my hands on myself and I'm talking about energy, I'm talking about what you commonly call Reiki, but self-Reiki, okay. So all of that going together, the yellow and orange working together to create and to repair the health of the physical body. Of course, everyone's familiar with your heart chakra, most of the time represented in the color thing by green. You'll also see it represented pink. And when we get into it a little bit, I'll tell you what the difference is in those 2 colors. One of those is actually chakra, and one of those is actually an auric energy, which is a little bit outside the body, but still working really hard for you. Beyond that, we have the throat chakra. The throat chakra is one of the easiest to repair and one of the things that we let be out of a line the most. It's about speaking our truth, 100% truth, regardless of who it may offend or who it may not sit with, because what you have to understand is if someone's offended by your truth, that's none of your business, that's their business. In not speaking your truth, I will tell you, it causes a lot of problems. Thyroid issues in the United States, at least, are rampant. As a nurse, I spent an hour in the morning just giving out pills for thyroid because they come before breakfast, and I work night shift. So that has to do with people not speaking their truth, people not living who they are, people trying to be something they're not. It all sounds like a whole lot of stuff to be coming through this little throat chakra, doesn't it? But when we get into explaining, I will explain to you energetically, this throat chakra is your blow-off valve to release pressure. As pressure builds in your human life, energy coming in, any of you know energy coming in somewhere has to be a relief valve. It's a process that works right here. And we'll talk more about that later. I just want to move on through kind of an introduction. Beyond the throat chakra, we have third eye chakra, the brow chakra. People call it different things. This is, in fact, way more than a chakra. It is here in this area that you access it, but this is actually a portal. And we'll talk about that a little later too. But your third eye chakra is your interpreter of off-world data, your interpreter of non-physical data. It drives your imagination. It's very key responsible in learning. And it is also the big bugaboo in causing anxiety. And we'll talk about that a little bit later too. Okay, moving beyond the third eye chakra, we move to the crown. Different people, some people say the crown is purple, some say it's this clear diamond. I don't really care about the colors. At that point, we're getting into a very pale, purpley white light, whatever. The crown has a very specific function in the human body. And people have a mistaken understanding sometimes that brain equates to crown. But that's not exactly accurate because 2 chakras affect and run the brain. There is the deep brain, which is a function of the root chakra. And I'll tell you about that as we go back and start picking this apart piece by piece. There is also the outer brain. There is also the outer brain, and there's this, the learning brain, or if you will, the crown chakra. And the key word, the easiest word for me to give you to remember that and to remember its job, it is the label maker. It labels this world around you so that you know what you're looking at. I get into a lot of this, excuse me. I get into a lot of this trying to explain to people how we get into this thoughts about thoughts, okay? That's a big thing with me. What that basically means is the crown is just kind of spinning out of control. I use the example of a hamster wheel. If any of you have ever seen one of them little critters get on there, they just spin and spin and spin and spin and spin. Of course, they don't go anywhere. They just keep going around the circle over and over and over. Well, all they got to do to get off of it is just step off of it. And a hamster is smart enough to know that, but not all of us are. We'll spin on it for entire lifetimes, for multiple lifetimes sometimes. That's what some of you would know as karma. Okay, so the crown chakra has very specific duties. It is to categorize, codify, put away, help in learning your memories of all this stuff that your senses take in. So you have your sight, smell, touch, taste, hearing. Those are your 5 senses. Thought is also a sensory event. Thought is what I call a metasense, in that it takes information beyond the physical senses. Metaphysics simply means beyond the physical. Well, a metasense simply means beyond the physical sensory experience. Okay? So if we're working with the crown chakra and you hear me talk about thoughts, and you'll hear it a lot, that runs about 90% of our life, because the only thing that is not thoughts about thoughts is this moment right here, right now. And as you see, as soon as I can say the words, the moment is already gone. There is no way to grasp that moment of presence as long as you're trying to codify it, categorize it, label it, put it away. The crown very much likes everything put away in nice, neat little buckets. It doesn't like stuff just laying around uncodified. Okay? So part of this beginning to understand this is to understand how to get that crown to shut up, let you rest, let it rest, and to realize you don't have to label everything you see in the world. I'll give you a very simple example of this. When you walk out on your front porch in the morning, right here now in Oregon, we're in the middle of an El Nino year, so it's like spring outside, 60 degrees and wet. Today it got cold, but it's been raining a lot. And it's like the flowers are blooming and birds are out. You walk outside and you hear, that's the sense of sound. You hear the sound. As soon as your brain says bird, it has been transferred into thought space, just like that quick. Okay, that's what I mean about 90% of our lives. It's probably closer to 99 about thought space. Well, the trick is to get those thoughts about thoughts to be ones you want. If you're having thoughts about thoughts that drive you crazy and cause you anxiety and make you not sleep and make you question every decision you make, that sucks. But if you're having thoughts about thoughts, like I do every day, where I get up and I think, bird, beautiful. My next thought might be, coffee, smells good. I mean, I'm having thoughts, of course, because I'm living and I'm moving through time. But I very seldom have a thought come in that is negative. And if I do, I have learned with 4 or 5 years of training, granted, to release those just like that. And that's what these workbooks are about. And these workbooks go step by step by step, telling folks how I did this and how they can possibly do it. I have come up with quite a few little charts, or I guess you'd call graphs. Let's see if we can see them here. I'm still learning how this camera works. Okay, so little things like this in the book. Can you see those? I can't really tell. Anyway, I've come up with these, and what this is basically it says this is the manifestation you're having. We'll take an example. You have depression. The imbalance, the root is stuck. It's not spinning. It's spinning so slow that it's almost not spinning at all. The meditation to help this, my energy is rising. Light is brighter. It's coming up. The alignment for this, spend time in the sun. Get out there and exercise outside. And then the charge, to charge or to give it a, what you might call like a boost, push your body through some fatigue. The best thing you can do for depression is move. Before we go any further, and it sounds like I'm lecturing, I'm going to remind you, I was a nurse for 30 years. I did a lot of teaching, but I try not to let that be what I'm doing here. This is teaching, but it's not teaching because that's what the doctor said, okay? I want to tell you what worked for me, what I have found works for others, and I want to answer your questions and start exactly wherever you are. That's where I want to begin. So before we go on, let me tell you that during my 30 years as a nurse, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. Yeah, that's what it was called. I've been I've been diagnosed with the major depressive disorder, with an anxiety disorder, all kinds of physical aches and pains. I had to have back surgery. I've been addicted to narcotics, been addicted to narcotics that weren't mine. You get the idea. I've come through hell and beyond, and ended up 5 years ago, almost dead, at the end of my career, not liking nursing very much, not liking life at all, needing to get to the end of a marriage. So just everything kind of collapsed all at once. Some people call this a dark night of the soul. You have hit rock bottom. You've heard the term, you have hit rock bottom. Okay, well, rock bottom, you hit it, there's nowhere to go but up. So you either figure out what you're doing or you lay there on the rock and die. And so I made that choice. Like I told you, the curtain was right there. It was just step through it and be done, go into the rock, I guess, or pick up and do something about it. So here I am 5 years later, thriving, happy as can be, in the greatest relationship of my life. I've done all this writing and all this traveling to work with these native folks. In my shaman life, I am working on healing the ancestral line of the Lakota people. We just recently finished a big celebration here in honor of Wounded Knee, which was just an anniversary on December 29th. So anyway, all that stuff going on is because I understand chakras. Isn't that just amazing? My whole entire life has changed upside down for the absolute great better because of understanding chakras. And it did start out with just those first seven. The first seven chakras, what I call the famous seven. And the way it happened to me is that's the way the downloads came. The downloads came and said, I mean, it was real weird. If you want to go all the way back to there, you want to go back to the beginning. My first book was Grandma to Guru, and that kind of tells how this whole thing came about, because I was pretty sure I was insane. Remember, I was a registered psychiatric nurse. I knew all the symptoms, and I knew I wasn't supposed to have them. And I knew that the voices in my head weren't helpful to me at that point. And I'm still working, and I'm giving people medicine, and I spent 5 years with children telling them those voices in your head aren't real. Well, God damn, it turns out they are real. Not only are they real, they can talk back, they can be helpful. You can sort out the ones that are not helpful. There's a whole world just over there, just on the other side of this one. And learning to control chakras and move within them willfully opened that the entirety of the world up to me. That's it. But the first thing you got to do is get your physical body in condition and get healthy enough to do this. If you're thinking enlightenment is going to be this, now I can just rest and don't. That's not what it's like. It's work every day. And if you do become enlightened, which simply means awake to realizing what's really going on here and what's really not, there becomes a compulsion to get some work done. At this point, I work in the Ascended Master level almost exclusively, which is quite a ways up, an area of persistent data streams. I will explain all that eventually, but we can only go so far on one day. Um, excuse me. But that's where I channel Black Elk. I channel Prince Gautama, who you would know as Shakyamuni Buddha. So these folks are no longer alive, but they did leave a lot of information behind. And when you get to a very, very high, very specific frequency, you can access this information. Well, guess what? When you access the information, they expect you to share it and do the work. It's not like you get to access it and say, "Oh, I got that. I'll just keep it." No, like I said, I've written about 25 books, not because I had this great desire to be a best-selling author, and trust me, I'm not, but because I have this compulsion, this information must be shared. That's why they stay at the Ascended Masters level, is because they have valuable information to share with all of humanity, not with me. I am more like a teletype receiving incoming message. That's it. And I just disperse the information. As far as becoming an expert at anything, the only thing I can claim to be an expert at is getting the chakra under alignment and knowing how to move within it. As far as what they have to say and what all comes from that, that's getting into way above my pay grade. So I'm trying to figure out, oh, there's a live button. It says we've been doing this for 30 minutes. For 30 minutes. Let me see. I'm going to take just a second here and look what's happening over here on the side. Folks who are joining me, I appreciate you being here, and I'm not responding to each of you separately because I don't really know how, and that seems like it would disrupt me. If any of you have a question, though, I'd be happy to answer it. I don't see any questions. I just see people saying hi, so hi. If you want to have the workbooks, if you're local to Salem, Oregon, I have a few of them here at the house, not many, but they're available from Amazon. And if you order them from Amazon, you can order them anywhere in the world, and they print them in about 20 different languages. So that's why I do all of my books, whether they're workbooks or reading books, I do through Amazon because of the availability in a great many languages. So that's helpful. As far as doing the ChakraTalk workbook itself, if you get it and you get to page 14 and you have a question, come on here and talk to me about it, and let's see if we can figure it out. If you get the workbooks and you have something to say that you think I've got incorrect, I would greatly welcome you to come talk to me about it, because if there's a mistake in there, I'd like it to be pointed out to me. So far, everything that is in there has proved out to be valid. But if there's something I've missed, I'm wide open to someone saying, "Hey, you screwed this up." Okay. If you have issues with anxiety, particularly anxiety, it's such a killer. I have a couple of other books that are really focused on that, and on the issue of being told that you're insane. Besides the chakra stuff, if your mind is running away with you, it's real hard to sit down and have a little aromatherapy and, eat some kale. That just doesn't work that way. So really, the first thing you need to do is get that crown chakra under control. Get the crown chakra under control, get your thoughts figured out, figure out where they're coming from. How do you slow them down? How do you take charge of driving the vehicle instead of the thoughts driving you? So that's where we're going to start. I think I'm going to stop today. I've kind of given you the intro. I see a bunch of you here. I'm going to send out some invitations. I think that's the piece of this I missed. And I think there's a way I can go and invite a lot of folks so they'll know we're doing this. Marita, thank you for being here. I see that you stayed for the whole thing, and I appreciate your expertise. Any of you that have any questions, please come back and see me. Like I said, I'm just getting started. I'm going to close this off at about 35 minutes, so we'll see what we see. And I welcome private messages. I welcome you all to come visit me on my page. This is going to be a hoot. I'm going to do this every day this year. Y'all are going to get sick of me. Okay. Bye, guys.